Zetterburn is one of the most popular characters in Rivals 2, both with pro players and beginners. And there's so many reasons for that. His simplicity makes him really easy to pick up, but his massive skill ceiling and high APM means that you'll never run out of new tech or strategies to learn and improve on. Today, I'd like to make that improvement a little easier by breaking down Zetterburn's kit, exploring what he's good at, and also taking a peek at what he's not so great at as well. Before I really dive in, I want to address the elephant in the room. And no, I don't mean Loxodon, he'll be getting a video soon though. I'm not a Zetterburn player. But there's a lot of incredible Zetterburns that enter my free online weekly tournaments, so they'll be the ones providing the tips and tricks in this guide. I pinky promise you're in good hands. All their social medias are linked down below, so if you want to check them out or give them a thank you, be sure to do that. To kick off our guide, let's take a peek at the most basic aspects of Zetterburn's kit. Don't worry though, if you're already familiar with it, each segment of this guide is timestamped, so feel free to skip around. Zetterburn is Rivals of Aether's most standard character, more or less. He's an all-rounder of sorts, in the best way possible. He has solid movement, great frame data, incredible combos, and some of the easiest to use and most potent kill confirms. He also has a pretty useful projectile that can be used to set the tempo of a match, and tons of recovery mix-ups. All these tools come together to make an incredibly oppressive kit that let him smother opponents in advantage, and apply tons of pressure in neutral. However, Zetterburn has a pretty quick fall speed, so he gets comboed pretty hard himself, and while he does have a lot of recovery mix-ups, if your opponent is able to predict your recovery route and call it out, it might be GG's. This, however, doesn't hold the lion back in any way that makes him unusable or unfun. It's just a hurdle that we'll have to learn how to overcome today. Now that we know the basics of what Zetterburn wants to get out of his kit, let's figure out how to actually apply them by breaking down his neutral. As I mentioned, Zetterburn kinda has everything in this kit, but that doesn't mean his neutral is necessarily complex or too hard to pilot in any means. In fact, it's quite the opposite, since the tools he does have are all so good and versatile that he can adapt and change his game plan on the fly, but they're also strong enough that he can force opponents to play around dodging his advances instead of necessarily taking their own. Something I like to do that embodies this idea is jumping at an opponent with a forward air. If the move hits, great, I get to start my advantage state in a combo. If I miss, that's okay. The move's really fast, so I probably won't get punished too hard, if at all. And if I hit shield, I get to start mashing to my heart's content. Zetterburn has multiple moves that are pretty safe on shield, and all of them also start combos. This means that as I rotate using tools like forward air, shine, jabs, more shines, and maybe a down tilt or up tilt, my opponent has to decide if they want to continue holding shield, knowing they'll risk it breaking, or if they're content taking a hit, knowing that it's going to start my big combo. This is the core of Zetterburn's neutral, since pressure like this can be applied even on a non-shielding opponent. Your moves are still just as fast not on shield, meaning you can toss moves out in front of your opponent and space them at a range where you won't be vulnerable, while also restricting their movement and closing gaps, daring your opponent to make a mistake or walk into one of your options. Moving away from quick and high pressure aspects of neutral, there will always be cases where Zetterburn struggles to find a range that he's comfy clicking away on his controller in. Some matchups like Loxodon have a bit more nuance, since he can always swat you away, or Absa, where her great wave dash and cloud can provide safety and cover for her. In these cases, I like to rely more on Fireball and Down Special to limit space and help me approach. One idea I like to implement is scorching the ground with Down Special in a part of the stage I know that I can't, or don't really want to commit to cover. Let's say my opponent is on the left platform of Godai Delta. I might leave fire mid-stage, then throw a fireball at the platform, and then apply shield pressure from below. This means that if my opponent hops over the fireball, they'd be limited on where they can land, or be forced to get hit by my fire on the ground. If they choose to shield the fireball, they'd be put in a tricky shield pressure string that I mentioned a minute ago. And if they opt to drop from the platform, they're now playing with their back to the edge of the stage, giving me the upper hand. Obviously, situations like this don't play out one-to-one in a real game as often as I'd make it seem, but there's so many ways to stack Fireball and the Burning Stage Hazard to smooth out the rest of Zetterburn's kit, and allow him to swing neutral in his favor before the scrap even begins. Grabs are also great for Zetterburn. Since his moves are so fast, there's a lot of spots you can jump in or run into an opponent, force him to shield a potential attack, and then net a grab instead. His up and down throw can set up combos on opponents based on percent, with my personal favorite being up throw. And forward throw is great for putting opponents off stage, but we'll touch on ledge guarding later. For now, let's talk about those other combos and combo starters. Hey gamer, I'm hopping in here to remind you to use code LastStock in the Rivals 2 shop. It goes a long way to support the channel, and helps fund my free weekly events. If you're feeling extra generous, I also enabled $2 YouTube memberships here on the channel. I'll be hosting some member-only lobby streams, and when I can, posting videos a little early for y'all over there. It's never necessary, but the support means a ton. Let's get back to the video. Zetterburn's best combo starters are his jabs, which cancel into up tilt or down tilt that both confirm into aerials, down air, which pops opponents into the air for a combo if they're standing on the ground, neutral air, which can drag opponents down, back air, which has super low knockback, and the grabs that I just mentioned earlier. Shine is also an incredible combo starter and tool since it's jump cancelable and confirms into tons of options based on how you apply the move. Shine's a bit more complex in usage though, so we'll break that down in its own segment in just a minute. Once you have your opponent in a combo, Zetterburn primarily wants to be using aerials, hit falling, reacting to the DI, and then following up with another aerial. Tools like down air and nair can pull your opponents back towards the stage to keep combos going. And sour spot hits and moves like up air and forward air can be used to keep opponents close, while racking up percent. These sour spots become less consistent at higher percent and aren't too hard to DI, so you can't rely on them too much. When opponents start to find out Zetter's combo route and DI out of it, remember that you can always chase them down with a fireball and try to catch their escape. Fireball and hit can confirm into forward air or a strong. It's uniquely strong to force opponents to burn a disadvantage option, like a jump, and then reset your combo. Once your opponents are at a higher percent, Zetterburn unlocks a ton of kill confirms. I've been playing a few clips by Wood in the background, so I'm pretty sure you've noticed some flashy kills already. But combos like Fireball up strong, Fireball forward throw, forward air strings, Shine up strong, down throw up strong, and ending general combos with a down air off stage are just all super strong and pretty consistent as Zetterburn to take early stocks. The best way to guarantee an early stock, however, is to keep your opponent on fire and force them to play scared. Once your opponent knows a burning strong attack would take their stock, they'll be forced to play on the back foot in neutral, which can lead to them making overly careful decisions or overextending, which allows you to get away with more than you normally would. Looping back to Shine like I mentioned earlier, I want to talk about everything you can do with the move, since it's a pretty versatile tool and good in many or not most situations. We already mentioned its shield pressure, but you can also use Shine and then grab, putting opponents in a nasty 50-50, if they want to drop shield and challenge the grab, or just get hit. You can also use Shine to pop opponents up to start a combo, or confirm into moves like up strong like I mentioned. It's also great to be charged off stage to knock opponents away from the stage or into the bottom blast zone. I like this option the most against characters who can greatly mix up their recovery timings or spacings, like Edalus, since I don't need to aim a down air. I can just hold Shine above him and wait for his up B to pop into me. For Shine's final main use, you can use it to extend some combos, most notably on the ground, since Shine Wave Dash is still super strong even after it's been nerfed a few times. Since you combine the low end lag and commitment of Shine with the high burst movement of a Wave Dash, making it really hard to hit Zetter, and in some cases comboing opponents around the stage and allowing for Zetter to closely follow DI. Overall, Shine is a super strong and very safe tool, and while it might be a little tricky to get down at first due to its high APM usage, be sure to keep using the option to get the most value out of Zetterburn. Around this point in the video, you're probably thinking, wow, Zetterburn seems really broken. These clips that I'm watching are insane, and his kit seems to have a bit of everything. And this is the part of the show where I burst your bubble a bit. Sure, Zetterburn will probably do 50 to 70% in a combo to you in one opening, and sure, he'll probably also kill you around 80 or 90, but you can also combo him and kill him super early as well. As a Zetterburn player, disadvantage is beyond scary. Zetter's weight and fall speed make him the perfect candidate to be juggled, and he doesn't have very many tools besides Shine that he can click while being comboed by an opponent, since most options either aren't big enough to consistently beat an opponent's approaches, or are too telegraphed and have too much end lag like down special. Shine does remedy this like I mentioned since it slows your fall speed just a bit, but it's not a full solution since its small hitbox won't really lead to any reversals. My best tip for you when you're getting juggled is to just take your time, take a deep breath, and find a way out without overextending or allowing your opponent to get any form of extra credit. A lot of combos will also aim to put Zetterburn off stage. In these instances, you'll want to manage your resources very precisely, and not give away what your recovery route is until you're going for it. Zetter has all the tools to mix it up and make it back, but if you're predictable, it's pretty easy to take these tools from him one by one and leave him stranded off stage. Your safest recovery route will probably be to hug the wall and up B, since if you do get hit, you can just DI and then wall tech, and simply repeat your recovery attempt. However, you can also cancel Zetterburn's down B and flip to the ledge. This option does get beat by a lot of lingering moves, and it's not super safe, but it's a good mix-up on occasion since it's so much faster than his up B. Speaking of a mix-up, I like to combine both of these ideas and use my double jump, then commit to a real down B. After using this move, Zetterburn will get his jump back, and will probably be pretty close to the wall, letting me double jump again, then wall jump, and then hug the wall like I mentioned with up B. You can also always just up B onto a high platform, since opponents might expect for you to aim for the ledge and aim their moves there, allowing you to fly above them freely. To wrap us up on Zetterburn's disadvantage and recovery, remember you can always throw Fireball while dropping down off stage to prevent opponents from being able to chase you. Zetter is super vulnerable as up B is in startup, but it's not super long, so that means your opponent will need to already be moving towards Zetterburn to capitalize on his vulnerability. So offsetting their timing, even by just a bit, by throwing something like Fireball, really goes a long way here. Now that we have a good understanding of how to approach neutral, advantage, and disadvantage, I want to get a bit more complex and talk about Zetterburn's stages, and where he does and doesn't really want to go, since what stage you pick really changes how you'll want to approach the ideas we've previously covered. For example, stages with low ceilings guarantee earlier kills with Upstrong, but stages with smaller side blast zones reward you more for successfully landing forward air strings. With that being said, stages with low ceilings are probably going to be your default picks as Zetterburn, since those Upstrong conversions become so much more lethal, and there's not really another character that wants to kill off the top more often than you. Harbor is great for Zetterburn's recovery, since the high plats near ledge give him an option to recover high, or recover low under the stage, meaning getting spiked is much less of a risk due to how opponents would have to position. This means opponents will have to wait and react to your up B option instead of being able to call it out without thinking too much, since you have 2 or 3 places that you can safely up B to in most scenarios on this stage. Godai Delta is really great for Zetterburn as well, since it also has a low ceiling, and less space Zetter has to take up on stage. If you're able to force your opponent to ban both of these stages, it opens up your stage picks a lot and allows you to force your opponent to go somewhere they might not like as much. On the other side of things, Air Armada and Merchant Port are both pretty bad for Zetterburn. Air Armada is pretty self-explanatory, with the stage being big, making it harder to pin down opponents, and it not having any walls, meaning that you lose a lot of your recovery mix-ups that I mentioned earlier, like going low with down B or using flip to the wall. This also means opponents don't even need to commit to spiking you, since all they really need to do is knock you underneath the stage, and then it's curtains for our lion friend. Merchant Port is bad for similar ideas as the first, as it's your least impactful starter, but also that the top platforms are just a little bit hard and awkward for Zetter to land hits on and get a combo started. Sure, you can land an up air, but at that height you're not going to really get a ton off of it, and it can slow down the game a lot, which isn't really something that Zetterburn wants. The side plats on this stage are really good for recovering though, so it's not all hopeless here, but I can't really imagine why you wouldn't ban it when all the other starters are so much more advantageous for you, since they're all a good bit smaller, allowing you to trap and apply pressure with Fireball, and land your burst options a lot easier. Past that, all the stages are just pretty okay for Zetterburn, so considering that your opponent's best stage will go a long way here. For example, a lot of Crags really like Hyperborean Harbor and Air Armada, so you might want to take them to another stage to avoid giving them their best one. To wrap us up, I have a few quick tips provided by our Zetter players. Speaking of them though, we'll be having a few of the Zetter players come on the podcast really soon to go much more in depth on these and everything else we've talked about today. Sorry for the lack of those podcasts dropping, by the way. I'm in my last semester of college and got sick, so between that and being sick, I haven't had too much time. But I've got a great lineup for next month, and I hope you are looking forward to it. For our first Zetter tip, you can't really go too deep for edge guards without risking being cheesed. This means that unless you're able to call out a linear recovery or land a spike near the ledge, you probably should opt for ledge guarding with tools like Shine and F-Tilt, while mixing in options to pinch opponents like down B's Fire Pool and side B to limit movement. You can also always go to ledge and then instant drop with your neutral air to steal some options and force your opponents to cover at weird angles. This is especially good if they've already burned a jump in their first recovery attempt, since they won't have it again. While applying shield pressure, be sure to mix up how you end it. If you end your shield pressure or take the same route with it every time, you'll become predictable, allowing your opponent to figure out an easy escape option. Speaking of shield pressure, if you're new to Zetter, it's okay to apply safe pressure that you're comfy with while your APM is a bit lower. Zetter is a super input heavy character in these spots, so don't give up on him if you're having trouble applying lots more moves in such a short amount of time. As Zetterburn, you'll want to stay as grounded as possible until you're engaged with your opponent, since as I mentioned, Zetter is super prone to being juggled. Your dash dance is still super solid even after the most recent movement changes, and you can run behind tools like Fireball to help close gaps. Remember, if you opt to jump in neutral, try not to burn your double jump, since if you get hit after spinning it, you won't really have it to help you out in disadvantage or in a recovery situation. Finally, not all of Zetterburn's combos are 100% true, so sometimes waiting to see what defensive option your opponent picks can allow you to reset a string and get more reward than you would have if you had just pursued a generic combo. A good example of this is stringing together a few up airs, and then seeing if your opponent opts for an air dodge or a double jump or maybe a move at disadvantage. Then, you can punish that option accordingly. This can apply to most combos in Zetterburn's kit, since you're normally reacting to things like DI. This idea just takes it one step further. That just about wraps up our tips and tricks and this guide. If you have any questions that you would like to have answered on the podcast, or have some advice as a Zetter player, feel free to leave them down below. I also left a Google form linked in the description, asking you to rank your favorite Rivals 2 characters and how fun they are to fight. It's a fun community-based video idea that I had, and I'd love to see what you guys think. It'll drop in a week or two, but until then, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now!